Welcome back. I hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving. We're going to jump into the first game here, which is Rags destroying Nick by 55 points. Rags went up on Thanksgiving night 46.7 to 6.4. Sanu threw a beautiful 51-yard bomb to Julio for a touchdown. Crabtree threw some punches that I don't think connected on anyone on the second play of the game and got tossed. Luckily, though, that suspension has been reduced to only one game, which will help Nick in the playoffs. The rest of Nick's team didn't show up. Not even the Skittles brothers could have saved him. Robbie Anderson converts two nice long touchdowns for Rags. He now has the longest active streak with touchdown receptions in 5 straight games. I believe he has 7 over as many games. Zerline back to his previous ways of scoring 17 points to make it 17 in 4 out of 5 games. Next up, I crush Ariel, having the highest point total of the week. I believe I also had the second highest point total 2 weeks ago as well. But in typical Vin fashion, my team only decides to play well when I'm mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. With that said, all of the trades paid off. Ted Ginn scored 14, and the Skittle brothers combined for 55 points, I think. Don't fact check me. I also suck at math, but I think that's what they wound up putting up. Kamara had another huge game, moving him into 3rd in total points and 1st since the Peterson move was made. Ariel's team also had a solid outing, the first time in 4 weeks. Next up, Jordan keeps his playoff hopes alive. The big story here was Julio's 50-point game. His stat line for that is 12 for 253 and 2 touchdowns, easily the highest single total of the year. Vernon Davis puts up a big goose egg. Virgil rolls out Tampa Bay's defense and gets screwed for it, -5 for them. Dak was bad again, his 8th turnover in 3 games and only 1 touchdown since Zeke left. Doesn't look good for him, but Jordan picked up, I believe, Keenum for this week and spent $61 on him. Quite a hefty price tag, but we'll see if it pays off and gets him a spot in the playoffs. Crispy barely ekes out a win to keep his hopes of a no zebra bye alive while knocking Will out of playoff contention. Crispy wins by less than a point, surprisingly against someone not named Rob. Matchup started close and early, closing out Thanksgiving night 48.2 to 47.8. Pittsburgh's defense disappointed Sunday night with only 3 points against Brett Hundley, leaving the door open for Will to come back and take a much-needed win. Will looked good early in the Monday night game with the TD from Collins, but on the last drive of the game, Savage broke the 300 mark just before throwing the icing interception. These negated each other and kept Will down by less than a point. Will could have won it in the end with a Collins run, but instead, Flacco's bootleg ended it. Will is now on a 6-game skid and has been of the bottom 3 scorers in all of those 6 games. Pete officially ends Rob's playoff hopes. Although Rob showed signs of life after 2 poor consecutive weeks, Pete's 149 points looks even scarier when you realize he only got 10 points from 2 touchdowns and 45 from receptions. Cooper Kupp stepped up big in Robert Woods' absence with 19.6 points for Rob. Lynch had 20.1 and now has scored more points in 3 weeks on Rob's team than he did in 7 on Ariel's. Pete picked up New England's defense off free agency on Wednesday, and they were tied for the highest scoring defense of the week with 18 points. Last but not least, a rematch of last year's Zebra Bowl. Kurt crushes Mike to put him in great playoff position. After getting 7 touchdowns from his flex position players last week, Mike gets 0 this week. AB had another monster week, 40-plus for the second week in a row, 10 catches in each with multiple touchdowns. Evan Ingram had another bad game. I guess we'll see what happens this week with Geno Smith. I wound up swapping Forte into Mike's lineup for the injured Ty Montgomery. but he only mustered 2.6 points with 26 yards and 0 receptions. Mike's sweet spot seems to be his running backs, with not much depth behind the up and down Shady McCoy. Up next, Nick put a few graphs together showing possible outcomes for Zebra bye, playoff bye, and I believe the last spot in the playoffs between Kurt and Jordan. Nick did possible outcomes for the Zebra bye. For me, it looks like if I win, I'm in. If anybody wants a copy of this, we'll be happy to send it over. Here is the bracket for the last spot of the playoffs. Jordan, in order to get in, needs a win and a Kurt loss. Here is the possible outcomes for the playoff bye. Mike will win points unless Pete outscores him by 60. All right, we're going to jump right into the previews for Week 13. Up first is myself going up against Will. I'm projected 123 points to his 113. Like I said previously, if I win, I am out of the Zebra bye, which would be excellent. I am hoping that happens. Up next, we have Virgil going up against Ariel. Virgil's pretty much locked for the playoffs, and he's not going to win points. This week is pretty meaningless for him. I guess in terms of seeding, it matters. But if Ariel loses, he's pretty sure locked for the Zebra bye. Next up, Jordan is going up against Nick. Nick is projected 123 points, and Jordan is projected 125. This is a huge game for Jordan. He needs this to make the playoffs, as well as other few things to go his way. Next up, we have Rob going up against Sleeve. Sleeve is projected 118 to Rob's 127. The loser of this game is almost guaranteed a Zebra bye. So this is a pretty important one. Next up, we have Mike going up against Rags. Interesting enough, Mike is in Thailand, I believe, and we all know Rags likes Thailand. I wonder if there's a connection there. Mike is projected 137 to Rags' 102. Rags' team seems to be showing up when they shouldn't. I don't think this game matters much for either of them. Mike just needs to outscore Pete by 60 in order to win points. And last but not least, Kurt needs to take down Pete in order to make the playoffs. If he wins, he's in. That's pretty much it. And again, Pete needs a huge week to outscore Mike by 60 in order to win points for the second consecutive year. That about wraps it up. Good luck to everyone in the last week of the regular season. Remember that December 9th is the meetup at Rob's house with a football game. And that's about it. Oh, right. One more thing. Rob is a pussy.